Physics Emily Rice, Director of Starman Robert Stone, and the Starman himself, Gentry Lee.
Hello, welcome. My name is Emily Rice. I'm an astronomer. I also consider myself very lucky to have the job that I have because I'm also just a huge space fan, a huge science fiction fan, a huge film fan. So I'm very excited to be here tonight in conversation with Robert and Gentry. I don't even know where to start, almost. There's so much in the film. Let's start at the beginning. Gentry, welcome back to New York.
Thank you. Is this working okay?
I'm curious, when you met Carl Sagan, did you bond over being from New York City, both of you, or no?
No, Emily. We bonded over the fact that we were both participating in a unique human experience, which was building a spacecraft to go and land on the planet Mars. And he was incredibly fascinated by what we were doing. And he used to ask me all the time, are we going to succeed? And I would say to him, Carl, we are all sufficiently scared shitless of failure that we might make it work.
That's amazing. Do the Brooklyn Dodgers moving to Los Angeles have anything to do with the path of your career? Would you have stayed in New York City if the Dodgers had stayed here?
No, actually, at the age of 6, my father decided that this is a long time ago, folks, that it wasn't, I lived at 7521 167th Street in Queens. Now, why in the world do I remember that? I'm a knowledge junkie and this sort of stuff stays with me. But he decided, he was working for the Associated Press, and he decided that raising children in New York City was not necessarily a good idea. So he accepted a job as a professor at the University of Texas in Austin as a journalism professor. So I moved there and I stayed there for a while.
Okay, so you spent more time in Texas after leaving New York City. That's
right.
And then, but your entire career at JPL for NASA, or have you moved around?
Okay, for those who don't understand this, I have to always explain it. The Jet Propulsion Laboratory is a federally funded research and development corporation, which means that it's a non-profit run by Caltech, and we do all of the planetary work for a long time for NASA. But I don't work for NASA, and some of my NASA colleagues get upset. They say, okay, we know that you've made a big imprint and all that sort of, but you don't work for NASA. Everybody, I work for the people who want to explore the solar system. You. Yes.
Which is definitely all of us, yeah. Yeah, JPL was NASA before NASA was NASA, in fairness. I think JPL, NASA has a huge amount of street cred, and JPL also recognized, it's like the nerds among nerds at NASA is JPL and the planetary exploration. So the film in your career kind of started with the Viking missions. Are there any missions going on today that you're still excited about?
Oh, yes. We have had 2 rovers roaming around on the surface of Mars for some time, one of them for 12 years and one of them for 5 years. And we're still finding amazing things. In fact, just in the last year, Emily, one of the remote instruments on Perseverance, that's the latest one that's landed, looking at a rock, found inside that rock specific chemicals that if we saw them on the planet Earth, we would know they were created by biology. Okay. This is what we did was we found a place on Mars that we thought would be the best place to possibly look for existing or past life, and we sent a rover there, and that rover is putting these samples into a good place for them to keep them. Unfortunately, the current administration has decided that they will not go and get those samples. Okay. Now, if I'm allowed to be politic in this group, I'm going to do this. The total cost of bringing back those samples from Mars so that we on the planet Earth can discover whether or not life ever evolved on Mars is less than the annual waste in the Pentagon. But it is too expensive for the current administration.
Robert, you have said that your kind of interest in space started with the combination of 2001: A Space Odyssey coming out, as well as the Apollo launch. Did you follow all of the other, like did you watch Cosmos? Did you follow
Sure.
the Viking, the Voyager?
No, I'm a child of the space age. I grew up in this moment in time when we were all getting prepared. We were going to send people to the moon. That was my, early childhood. And then 2001 came out the same, with a couple of months before the first manned flight around the moon. So all this stuff was happening at the same time. And, a few months later, Earth Day happened. And so environmental movement, all this stuff really made I was 9, 10 years old, made a huge impression on me as a kid. And I've spent much of my career, mining this moment in time, and trying to summon that sense of wonder and hopefulness and all the stuff we were feeling at that time. And so when I met Gentry, not only his personal connection to 2001 with his work with Arthur C. Clarke, which was amazing, but I think we both kind of bonded over, Gentry's 15 years older than me. I know I look older than him probably, but we, I think, had a common experience growing up in that time of this just sense of wonder about what's out there. And so yeah, 2001 is also the thing that made me want to be a filmmaker.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. One of the things that strikes me in the film is how our kind of, what we take for granted kind of in our exploration of space has changed over time. At first it was the rockets, like, can we launch humans into space? Can we launch these spacecraft into space? Can we land things? I love it when even Carl Sagan is talking about just putting cameras on Mars and waiting for things to walk by. And now, of course, we're like Gentry said, we're looking for minerals and just microscopic evidence of life, and trying to get out of this ambiguity of whether or not there is life in other places. Do you think that that's more challenging in terms of developing this wonder, or do you think there's still wonder there, even though it's a little bit more esoteric maybe?
I think it's bigger, I mean, it was shocking to me. I was surprised that in the early 60s, there was actually a widespread belief among scientists that there could be civilizations in our solar system.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
That was, perfectly plausible. So when Carl Sagan goes on the Tonight Show and says, that we might see animals, big animals running around.
Yeah.
It's 1976. This is still like, Carl Sagan's one of the leading, space visionaries and communicators in the country. But now we know so much more. And yeah, okay, there's not an advanced civilization on Mars, fair enough. But what we've discovered is so much more interesting. And the possibilities are so much more, as Gentry said in the film, 1 trillion planets, right? In our galaxy alone. And we see them now. We know they're there. And it's not a theory anymore. So the possibilities are extraordinary. So I think I'm perfectly happy with mystery. I don't need to know everything, right? I don't need to have everything answered for me. But for me, as somebody who's grown up through this whole time, I find it absolutely fascinating. And I think about this all the time, about how did we get here? Why is there life? Why did life exist at all? Are we alone in the universe? Are we perhaps the only thing in the universe that knows that there is a universe? That's possible. Gentry's really, you should tell him about how unique it is that we came to be.
If you ever take the time to ask the question, let me start with my deep felt. I consider every one of you, including me and those of us on the stage, to be an absolute miracle. Incredible miracle that we are chemicals risen to consciousness and able to ask the kinds of questions that we're asking. And all of this, if you go all the way back to the beginning, we do not yet completely know where the first life came from. But the reigning hypothesis is it happened in the water, hydrothermal springs, mixing the chemicals in such a way, and somewhere, eureka, there was the ability to reproduce. Now, over those billions, 4 billions of years, evolution has allowed us to exist, but only because at many different times, almost all life was wiped out, and only those that survived had the specific chemistry for survival, and that's why we're here. But to think about the idea that we are all on this, I hope you all know this, if an extraterrestrial biologist were to visit the planet Earth and go back and make a report to his or her or its biological convention, it would say, visited the Earth, some pretty interesting things going on there, but only one kind of life. They all reproduce using desoxyribose nucleic acid. So therefore, there's only really one species. What that means, everybody, is you, me, elephants, slime mold, and the wonderful octopuses, which I have to say is a special thing about, are all alike. Now, there's something in this movie that I want you to think about. How could we presume to ever be able to communicate with an extraterrestrial intelligence when we haven't even figured out how to communicate with the obvious intelligences on our own planet? I heard a speaker talking about using AI to talk to beluga whales, and he was making an initial thing. But of all the species, the one that is the most distant from us and is so clearly intelligent are octopuses. And we haven't even scratched the surface. So just imagine if an extraterrestrial were to come down and look at us, would we ever figure out how to talk to him or it?
They probably wouldn't speak English. I think that's the
We eat them. That's even worse, I think. Oh my gosh, we eat them. There is somebody on YouTube who he bought an octopus from a supermarket, I believe, and trained it, and puts these videos on YouTube training the octopus to, play piano. I think was the one that I happened to watch. But it's amazing your kind of optimism and your sense of wonder. And one of the things, you're a scientist, you're an engineer, you're also a futurist. And I'm wondering, because I also think about the future, but for me, I just call it my anxiety. How do you think about the future like this without getting fully overwhelmed and paralyzed by the unknown?
This metaphor of the light, and I hope you all got it. It is one of the two prevailing answers to where are they. One of them is that there is something about an advanced technological civilization that will cause it to wipe itself out in a relatively short period of time. The other one, which is a favorite of lots of science fiction writers, is that they're out there. They're watching us. They're receiving our radio and TV. They're watching Howdy Doody and Adolf Hitler's speeches. And they get together and they say, don't want to deal with those dudes. But when I look at the future, I have to tell you an interesting thing, Emily. There was a critic who did not like the fact that in my novels, all the people were exceptionally intelligent and had high integrity. He said, that's just not normal. He said, and I wrote him back, I said, why would I want to spend 5 years of my life writing about people that everybody knows every day? Anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is there is something in us that I call the best of us. Carl wrote a wonderful book in which he defined the 3 parts of the brain, and the reptilian brain, fear of flight, is the one at the core, but the part of the brain which separates us from all other species, the cerebellum, is where the corpus callosum connects the left and right sides of the brain. And if we use that properly to look at the future, we can survive. But in order to do that, we have to make certain that the people who are making the decisions for us also do that kind of thinking.
Oops. Hopefully we're starting to fix that. We have a couple minutes to take questions from the audience, which I'm a little bit worried about because of the discussion of UAPs and stuff in the movie, but we'll take that risk.
That's fine.
Right here in the third row.
Yeah, how's it going? This might be a really dumb question, but like you know how, for example, like right, it takes like 8 minutes for like sunlight to reach the Earth and for us to detect it, and you extrapolate that out to like light years. Is it ever like kind of considered that like just in the consideration of like alien species communicating with us, that like per se civilizations like 30 million light years away, would they then be perceiving Earth 30 million years ago and only seeing that and being like, is
Correct.
like a rock of animals on or some shit?
Did everybody in the back hear it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Radio waves travel the speed of light, so if a star is 30 million light years away, we're seeing what happened 30 million years ago, and they would be seeing the same thing.
Yeah, it's terrifying. The answer might be not where are they, but when are they?
Sort of like Boston,
That-
right?
That's why the James Webb Telescope is looking back to the beginning of time.
And there's a major activity going on right now to try to find Earth 2.0 within a 60 light years range, which is, it's just a couple of million stars there. We're not up to a trillion
Is that the TESS mission that you're thinking of?
Yeah.
The TESS mission, Transiting Exoplanet Survey Spacecraft, I think is what it stands for. Looking at closer by stars to give us a little bit more chance to communicate with them if it's possible, but still, we have to have a much longer view of how long our technologically capable species is going to last in order to do these types of things. I think it's a great question. Another question, maybe in the fourth row here?
I love the movie, I thought it was great, your enthusiasm is infectious, it was fantastic. I just had a question about the Congress asking the military people and why you chose not to have the answer of what these military people have said over and over. I mean, I think there's something happening in 2000 since 2023, and I just thought you might.
I thought it was more interesting as a reflection of the thinking of the people who run their country, run our country, that this is what they're talking about, and asking whether there are humanoid aliens that have been captured by the US government and held hostage, and that there are photographs of them that we haven't been able to see, but somehow Matt Gaetz has. I thought that was more interesting than any answer that could be.
Yeah, but let me just make sure that you're not being misled. There exists no evidence that's extraordinary enough to claim that there's ever been any alien species visit the planet Earth. Okay?
Or UFOs.
Anything that, it would be very simple. Anything that came from another planet, the moment you could put your hands on it. None of these people that have been abducted by aliens have ever brought back any artifacts. No thimbles, no drinking glasses, no plates. The moment we have an artifact of any kind, we can reverse engineer it. We can say it wasn't, manufactured on the planet Earth. We do not have any evidence. And as we say in Cosmos, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Another question back here.
I loved the film, it was very moving. And I had a question on behalf of young engineers and young scientists. Where would you recommend that they direct their careers to move us forward, continue your work, and sort of keep us on the track? You mentioned in the beginning of the film that you grew up in this era of being the first generation to be the first in space. And things are changing now. What is this next generation's role?
What I tell young people is very straightforward. I am a knowledge junkie. I believe that my life is enriched because I learn something new every day, and that's what makes me happy. I believe that it is true that the human species has only advanced because people have asked questions and sought answers to expand human knowledge. So what I tell young people is the world is changing too fast for me to give you specific career advice. Cultivate inside yourself a love of learning and a diligence to put the talent that you have directly on whatever problem it is that you're interested in. And then wait. And remember this, you must spend your life doing things that matter to you. That is far more important than making money or anything else that you might choose to do in life. If you cannot go home at night and say to yourself, I am doing something that is worthwhile and I am working with people who are helping me to understand what the world is all about, then you need to think about changing your career.
I think that's a phenomenal way to bring closure to this conversation. Thank you, Robert, for helping tell a Gentry story. Thank you, Gentry, for dedicating your career to the exploration of space and inspiring so many of us to keep thinking about that and keep doing that. Thank you.
Couple of things I want to say
yeah.
before you go. So we do not have a Melania-size publicity budget, right? So if you liked what you saw tonight, please tell your friends, because this film lives or dies by word of mouth. Word of mouth can be more powerful than anything. But it's starmanmovie.com, Starman movie, hashtag Starman. It's all Starman movie. And please tell your friends. And maybe a snowball will happen, okay? Oh, and one more thing. My wonderful editor, Lady Jane Kerr in the back, and my producer, Keith Haviland over on the side here. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody.